Hello everyone, welcome to the introductory video for the garment kits for the Knitters Journey Club of 2020. Welcome, I'm glad to have you along with us this year. I hope that you'll find a lot of great techniques, tips, and helpful suggestions that will help you become a better knitter, more confident in working on some garments, as well as give you some tools in your toolbox for tackling other projects in the future. The first project that we'll be working on for the club this year is the Beekeeper Cardigan. This is a cute little lightweight raglan sleeve construction sweater. It works great as a layering piece, and I know I've used my version quite a bit in those transitional season months. You will need to pick up a copy of the pattern from Ravelry, and I'll go ahead and link that below so that you can pop over there to grab yourself a copy if you don't have one already. In your kit you will have enough yarn in the colorway you chose to knit the size you chose. This is the Atina DK. It is a Polworth and silk blend. Works great for this cardigan, which, as you can see in the picture, needs a little bit of drape. So again, the Beekeeper Cardigan by Marie Green. This introductory video is just going to walk you through some high-level information so that you can get started and get your swatches accomplished before the 1st of January when the club officially kicks off. So let's look at some specifics. The information that you find here, this is page 10 of the pattern, so it's towards the back, contains some great information about helping you pick the correct size. You'll see here that she has listed the sizes, and these will correspond to information within the pattern that goes from a size 32 to a size 52. Now, the important piece of information to know about this pattern is that the designer has already built in 3 to 4 inches of positive ease included in the pattern. So she has a note here saying there's no need to go up a size unless you like a more relaxed or loose fit. If you look here at the schematic, and schematics are full of wonderful information, so anytime you tackle a garment pattern, do be sure to take a look at the schematic and check out the finished measurements. They'll tell you a lot about how that pattern is going to fit once you finish knitting it. So you can see, for instance, that the very smallest size, the finished measurement, has a bust circumference of 35 inches. That would correspond to the size 32. This size listed here assumes your actual body size is 32 inches around the bust. And this lets you know that the cardigan is going to have 3 inches more circumference once you've finished it. So you'll need to make sure that you double check and see how much ease you want in your garment. 3 to 4 inches creates a garment that's not too loose and not too tight. It's kind of a Goldilocks measurement. It will be a more casual fit. In general, anything under 2 inches on an adult would be considered a trim fit. 3 to 4 inches is slightly relaxed. Anything over 4, like the 4 to 6 or even 10 extra inches, is going to be very big and sort of boyfriend sweater feeling. So you can see on this sample picture that the model has a little bit of swing and openness to the front of the cardigan. She's got a little extra fabric here around her arms, so you know that this is not a super fitted cardigan, and it's meant to be worn open. So the 3 to 4 inches of ease means it will give you a casual fit without being too big or too small. So in order to pick the size that's going to fit you best, choose the size here that matches your exact bust circumference, and then choose the matching size here in the finished measurements. So for instance, if your bust circumference in real life is 38, you would go here and choose 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth size up, and know that the sweater is going to be actually 42 inches in circumference. If you've purchased a kit to go along with this year's club, then the information here is what I sent you for your sweater pattern. So you've chosen this size and you know that it will have this much ease in it. I wouldn't recommend going up an extra size unless you really, really like loose fitting garments. This is not designed to be worn over a heavier shirt as like a winter layering piece. It's a transitional seasonal piece. So the 3 to 4 inches that the designer has built in here already should mean that you get an excellent fit with this sweater. Now you'll also notice here in the schematic information, she tells you the sleeve circumference at the upper arm. She also gives you the length of body from the underarm, which is customizable in this pattern. And then you also have 3/4 length sleeves. So those will be stopping mid forearm. Again, you can customize that length, and we'll talk about ways that you can customize those two measurements as we work our way through the garment. Next up, let's talk about needles. You will need a US size 7 in a larger circumference, meaning 32 inches around, as well as a shorter circumference to work the body and the sleeves. You will also need size US 5s in 12-inch, meaning a much smaller circumference, and then a 24-inch to work the neckline. If, as you're working on your gauge swatch, you need to switch needle sizes, remember that the size 7 or the larger size is what you'll be using to work your gauge swatch. And whatever needle size you wind up with here, you'll want to go down 2 needle sizes, meaning to a smaller size needle, to work your sleeve cuffs and your neckline. These will be in ribbing, and you'll want to make sure that those ribbing sections are going to pull in a little bit. Here's the cuff, so that there's a little bit of stretch left in the cuffs for the sleeves, the neckline, as well as the front hem and the bottom hem. So let's look a little closer at the gauge information. Here you've been given information that you'll be shooting for 18 stitches per 4 inches and 30 rows per 4 inches with larger needle. And she tells you right here that you're going to want to swatch in the little B pattern, and we're going to talk about that here just in 1 minute. Make sure that you wet block your swatch and dry before you measure. When you're blocking your swatch, if you're somebody who's used to working lace patterns, you do not need to block this severely. All you're going to do is pat it flat like that, pin out your corners, put several more pins in each of the rows and each of the edges, and just let it dry flat. You'll then go back and measure using either a ruler or a gauge tool to determine if you've gotten the correct gauge. If you have too many stitches per inch or per 4 inches, so more than 18 stitches, you're going to want to go up a needle size. So for instance, to a US size 8 or 9, depending on how much, how close you are to this original gauge number. If you wind up with too many stitches on the needle, you'll need to go down a needle size. So instead of a US 7, you would drop to a US 6. You may need to work 1 or 2 gauge swatches in order to get the correct gauge, but because this is a garment, it's super important that you check your gauge. Otherwise, your fit will be off and you may wind up running out of yarn. So I'd like to also turn now to page 9. Marie Green, who's the designer, does a great job of setting you up for success by giving you lots of great information in her pattern. She does note here that there are some video tutorials that will help you work this cardigan, as well as, of course, the technique videos that I'll be providing you as we go through the sweater construction here in the first part of the year. So she tells you right here, for swatching, you'll use your larger needle. She gives you the number of stitches to cast on, and then tells you to work 3 or 4 rows in stockinette and then begin the texture pattern, which is the little bee pattern that appears here in the body of the sweater. She gives you instructions to follow here that walks you through how to do your swatch. And down below that, she gives you a written out description of the little bee pattern. Please note that this is worked flat, meaning you're going to be working this swatch back and forth. Because this sweater is a cardigan, you'll be working the body back and forth, and so this is to determine the gauge for the body of the sweater. This is a great textured pattern. I'm going to bring this a little bit closer so you can see. It's worked on a reverse stockinette background, meaning the wrong side of what is usually plain stockinette. You'll see on this side it's nice and smooth, so that's what is normally the right side of the fabric. But in this pattern, the little bees are going to sit up on this reverse stockinette background so that you can see them better. They consist of one purl bump here at the bottom, and then a slipped stitch to create the elongated body of the little bee. This is a great textured pattern that doesn't require a lot of difficult stitch manipulation and is easy and quick to work up, so I think you'll really enjoy working on that. Please note that she also has a section for gauge swatching in the round. Most people have a different gauge between the flat version and an in the round version. So while the sleeves are not as critical for fit as the body, it's a good idea, and you have plenty of yarn in your kits to do this, to go ahead and cast on a small set of stitches and work the same gauge swatch in the round to make sure that your gauge is the same. If it's not, you'll need to remember to make a little note for yourself to switch to a different set of needles, whatever size has given you the correct gauge, once you've checked the stitch in the round, or in the flat and in the round. And she has both of the stitch patterns broken out here for you to work both the round gauge swatch and the flat gauge swatch. You may also work the sleeves flat if you would prefer, and then we'll have to seam them up at the end. The pattern is written so that you would work the sleeves in the round. This information we will get to once we set up the sweater for the raglan shaping. It talks about how to get the pattern to be set up correctly so that you will be working the bees pattern both down the body as well as on the sleeves. So a few items of note before we get started. There's lots of fun shaping techniques in this pattern, and I'm going to break down those technique videos into individual videos so that you can use them as reference. You can go back and look at them step by step as we work through the sweater itself. Those will all be available after the 1st of January. And each of the techniques I will outline should help you put together this sweater in a way that you feel super confident with the techniques. Some of the things we're going to talk about are ways to make your ribbing look nice and neat. We're going to talk about raglan shaping, which is this diagonal shaping here at the top of the sweater that forms the connection between the body and the sleeves so that you recognize how those work. We're going to talk about increasing. The shaping that happens here is kind of unique and different on this pattern, and we're going to talk about ways to make that look nice and clean. We'll talk about ways to pick up stitches so that when you work your front bands as well as the neck band, you know how to pick those stitches up. Again, so that there's a nice clean edge and everything looks nicely finished. We'll talk about ways that you can customize the body. I knit this sweater exactly as written. I wanted it to be a slightly shorter waist length, a slightly below waist length garment, just like the front picture shows, but it's very easy to customize the length here in the underarm section. This garment is worked from the top down, so that will give you an idea of how to do that. And then of course we're also going to look at the sleeves and working this 3/4 length sleeve, and if you wish to make modifications to make it longer, how you can go about doing that as well. I hope that you'll enjoy taking this journey with me in 2020. I'm very excited that we've got so many folks who want to work on garment construction. I think this is going to be a fun pattern to start off with. It'll be a great addition to a late spring into summer wardrobe to throw on over a cami or a sundress, as well as to take us into the fall. So look for more videos right after the turn of the new year. Until then, go ahead and grab yourself a set of needles and your yarn and pop the swatch onto your needles. Again, make sure to wet block that, take good, careful measurements, make sure that you are getting the correct gauge so you know you're going to have a beautiful fit for your particular garment. And I will look forward to seeing you and any questions you might have in the Woolly Wonka Fibers Ravelry group. Feel free to post questions, post any progress photos that you'd like. If you have a question, someone else in the group probably does too. So it'll be a great opportunity to answer some of those questions there. And I can always do follow-up technique videos as we go through to make sure that you guys feel comfortable and confident in your sweater construction going forward. So thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you over in the group. Happy knitting!